Maya's easily trembled as she clutched the letter, her animation advancing in shaky gasps. She couldn't accept what she was reading. Tears blurred her vision, but she affected herself to accumulate reading. "Why didn't you acquaint me?" she sighed to herself, her articulation breaking. The truth hit her like a bale's train, and suddenly aggregate she anticipation she knew about her family, her life, her very character was a lie. As the door creaked accessible abaft her, a familiar voice baton one that she never expected to apprehend below these circumstances. "Maya," Judge Caprio said, his voice trembling as if he too could feel the weight of the moment. "It's time you knew the truth. It was a quiet afternoon when the letter arrived." The affectionate of day aback aggregate seemed accustomed on the surface, but Maya acquainted a acrimonious unease, a faculty that article was about to shatter her anxiously complete world. She had been spending the afternoon in her room, scrolling through her phone, listening to music, and absolution her thoughts alluvian aimlessly, aloof like every added teenager. But today, a package accustomed for her. It was an unmarked envelope, blubbery and closed with no acknowledgement address. She opened it with a mixture of concern and dread. The first affair she saw was a letter written in bold, apparent handwriting. The name on the top of the folio fabricated her heart stop. It was from her father's old partner, a dition her ancestors had not spoken about in years. Maya could feel the claret cesspool from her face as she began to apprehend the letter. "Maya, I'm sorry for what I'm about to acquaint you. I know your ancestor approved to assure you from the truth, but it's time you learned what absolutely happened. The past cannot break active forever. Your father isn't aloof who you anticipate he is. He is in witness protection. His name, his identity, they were afflicted to save him, and your ancestors from bodies who wanted him dead. I'm apologetic for not cogent you earlier, but it was too dangerous. Please understand. The accuracy will catch up with you whether you're accessible for it or not." Maya's apperception went blank. She reread the letter, acquisitive she had misinterpreted something. She had heard whispers in the abode growing up, little pieces of conversations that never made sense to her. But none of those whispers ever hinted at annihilation like this. She had developed up assertive that her family was aloof ordinary. Sure, they were secretive, and they confused a lot, but she thought it was aloof because her father worked in a high government job. She had no abstraction that her father's activity and her activity had been below connected threat because of his past. The words burned into her brain, attestant protection, a hidden life, a abstruse identity. She felt dizzy like the apple about her was spinning out of control. "Why didn't you tell me?" She sighed again, her voice thick with the weight of betrayal. "Why didn't you acquaint me?" Her affection raced as memories of her adolescence flashed before her eyes. Late-night buzz calls, hushed conversations, the way her ancestor would sometimes abandon for canicule on end. The sudden moves, the affected names. Maya had always accustomed these things as just quirks of their family. She had no reason to anticipate that Article Darker was ambuscade aloof below the surface. She capitaled to scream, to shout, to ask someone, anyone, why they hadn't told her the truth. But who could she trust now? Who could she about face to? Her thoughts were disconnected by the complete of the door acrid accessible abaft her. Maya didn't like charge to about face about to know who it was. The articulation that batten next was so familiar, so abounding of authority and calm that it about fabricated her shiver. "Maya," Judge Caprio said, his voice trembling as if he too could feel the weight of the moment. "It's time you knew the truth." Maya spun around, her heart thudding in her chest. There, standing in the doorway, was the last person. She accepted to see Judge Caprio, the well-respected, adamant-willed judge who had lived in her baby town for as continued as she could remember. His presence was about surreal, like something out of a nightmare. His normally abiding address was gone, replaced by articles softer, almost sorrowful. "Judge Caprio?" Maya asked, her articulation almost a whisper. He stepped into the allowance slowly, his eyes not leaving hers. "I'm sorry, Maya," he said quietly. "I perceive this is adamantine to understand, but they're so abundant you don't know. So abundant you've been kept in the aphotic about what are you talking about." Maya's articulation was sharp, filled with a bashing and a scent panic. "What do you beggarly by the truth?" Judge Caprio took a abysmal animation afore speaking. "I'm not here to aching you, Maya. I'm actuality to help you accept what's been hidden from you for all these years. Your father wasn't aloof, a approved man, as you've been led to believe. He was already deeply involved in Article Dangerous, something that amount him everything. But he fabricated a choice, a best to protect his ancestors at all costs, and that's why your actuality today with me adverse the truth. Maya acquainted a beachcomber of abhorrence wash over her. She couldn't action his words. The abstraction that her ancestor had been involved in article criminal, something alarming abundant to put their lives in connected accident, was too much to bear. No, she whispered, afraid her head. That's not true. My father's a good man. He wouldn't, Maya, please, Judge Caprio interrupted, his voice softening. I perceive this is difficult, but the accuracy is you can't escape it anymore. Your ancestor angry state's witness. He testified to join some very dangerous people, bodies who capital him dead, and that's why your ancestors had to go into hiding. That's why your name was changed, why you've been constantly moving, why your ancestor never backward in one abode for too long. It wasn't a loofah job. It was an activity or death decision, and it was an accommodation that was fabricated for you too. The ancestors bear to break safe. Maya took a footfall back, her heart hammering in her chest. No, she said, her articulation abashed with disbelief. No, this isn't true. This doesn't make any sense. She glanced bottomward at the letter again, activity as admitting the world had been pulled out from below her feet. It was too much, too overwhelming. Her accomplished life, aggregate she had known, acquainted like it was falling apart. Judge Caprio's face ashen with pity. I perceive it's a lot to booty in, but you have to understand, Maya. Your father did what he had to do. He wasn't just protecting himself, he was protecting you. You've been active a lie, but it was a lie meant to accumulate you safe. Maya wanted to scream, to run away, to disappear from the apple altogether. How could her ancestor kept this from her? How could he accept Arya to her, kept her in the aphotic all these years? Why didn't he acquaint me? Maya's articulation cracked. Why didn't he acquaint me that something like this ability happened? Judge Caprio stepped forward, his eyes sad but filled with empathy. Because your ancestor loved you too much. He anticipation that if he could accumulate you in the dark, if he could shield you from the truth, you would have a accustomed life. He capital you to have that, Maya. But the accuracy doesn't work that way. It catches up with you. And now you accept to face it. Maya didn't perceive how continued she stood there, frozen in place, her apperception racing. But finally, her anatomy gave out and she sank to the floor, her easily apprenticed against her face as sobs racked her body. The tears came in a flood, and she could feel the weight of aggregate she had lost. Her family, her faculty of self, her security, aggregate had been a lie. Judge Caprio knelt beside her, agreement a hand on her shoulder. I perceive it's a lot to bear, Maya, he said softly, but you don't accept to go through this alone. We'll get through it together. Maya shook her arch through her tears. I don't like a perceive who I am any more, she whispered. The accuracy afraid in the air like a blubbery fog, airless her. The only affair she could do now was face it. There was no active from it, no hiding from it. Her apple had afflicted forever, and there was no activity back.